All right, welcome back. Moving right along. Next section I have entitled, Did I Do That? This is the criterion that explains why it is not accurate to describe a narcissist as manipulative. They aren't consciously attempting to affect you. They genuinely believe that they know what's best and use various methods to get you to see the truth. Narcissists aren't interested in not fitting into cooperative society to gain some competitive advantage, but rather desire fitting in while not understanding why they can't or don't. This is because into like whether that's positive or not, right? Because it's like because some of them do actually get a lot of positive attention, right? So whether like they just don't fit in sometimes in good ways and sometimes in bad, right? Like even if you think about like Mean Girls, like Regina George doesn't fit in, but she doesn't fit in a way that makes other people want to not fit in like her, right? Yeah. So anyway, this is because insofar as the narcissist has no conscious motivation for their behavior, there is nothing for another person to consciously identify with in order to purposefully modify. You can't imagine another person having a fundamental psychological quality that you don't possess. It would be imagining the unimaginable. There was a video that I saw earlier today by Sansi Potenza, and it was like people who don't know a celebrity, like meaning like, and so it starts out with this like, have you heard the new Sabrina Carpenter song? And she's like, who's Sabrina Carpenter? And then it's like this like montage of people like, oh my God, she's never heard of Sabrina Carpenter. She's so cool. Oh my God, what about Beyonce? Da, 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 da. And at one point somebody says, oh my gosh, tell us more people you don't know, or tell us about more people you don't know. Or like and it's just funny because you can't, right? Um, you can't know about something you've never heard of, right? What is it like that Aborigines don't have any concept of snowshoes, right? Like people who live in the desert don't have any idea what a or any concept of a snowman, right? It just doesn't compute. So yeah, so this is what I'm saying here is like like I said, this is because insofar as the narcissist has no conscious motivation for their behavior, there is nothing for another person to consciously identify with in order to purposefully modify. So I mean, it's kind of like another way of saying this in the clinical sense is like someone who doesn't experience empathy can't be trying to motivate someone through guilt, shame, remorse, right? So, like, to think that a psychopath, right, to take it up a notch, right, to think that a psychopath who doesn't experience, excuse me, guilt, shame, and remorse is able to manipulate somebody by putting them into a state of experiencing guilt, shame, or remorse, how would they do that? Because they don't know what it is that they're trying to manipulate, right? So I guess it's kind of like I said, it's like if you took someone out of the desert and hijacked them and then plopped them in the middle of a blizzard, they don't. It's like putting people in a situation where they've never driven on ice before. They don't know how to brake and control the car on a slick surface, right? And like, how would they ever conceptualize it without experiencing it before? So anyway, that's a lot of metaphor, but I think that like the point has been made, right? Like, how can they be manipulating someone to do something when the things that we typically think of being used to manipulate people are emotions that they don't experience, right? How do you guilt trip someone when you've never experienced guilt, right? How do you shame somebody when you don't feel shame? Because then you don't know, like, that's a lot of observational learning that would be required to figure out what it is that would be considered shameful to then turn around and try to jockey someone into a position of feeling guilt or shame, you know? Anyway, but that's all I'm trying to say here. It's like, how can they be manipulating you when they don't experience the things that. So if you take this too in my Twilight Zone conspiracy theory, right? That if I don't know what's going on, right? So like I could you try to defeat my little hypothesis here a little bit. If I don't know what's going on, then how am I picking up on the fact that it seems that people are trying to communicate to me that something is going on? Well, because people act weird, right? I always feel like it's like the princess and the pea. I can feel the pea underneath the pile of mattresses. What I'm saying when it comes to people with narcissistic personality disorder manipulating people they've never heard of a bed before. So what makes you think they're lying on the mattresses and understand that they're uncomfortable, right? They don't have any reason, they don't have any point of reference for this. But I have lived life. I've watched television. I've read books. I've read magazines. I've known people. I've watched how things play out for others. I've seen things that work out the way people have planned work for other people blow up in my face. I've seen, like you said, like since being here in Hawaii, like, so my next project after this is over, I'm going to talk about my actual experiences here. Um, that there's no way that the way that my life has progressed in this place ever leads people to stay in this place. So this is how I would metaphorically put it, that's in a little bit more of an entertaining way. I remember watching like the reboot of Hawaii Five-O back in the day and thinking to myself and saying jocularly out loud, because I have friends that were extras on the show. I mean, if you listen to Light Traffic, like he himself was an extra on the show twice. And one of our regulars when I worked at the Safeway Starbucks was one of the people that was often hired to be one of their villains. So, which was kind of funny when you this is the same guy playing five different villains over the course of the show. But anyway, um, that if like this show actually makes Hawaii and like Honolulu in particular, right, Oahu in particular, appear to be so criminally dramatic. Like this looks like if this show was even an accurate depiction of reality. Like there's like massive chase scenes going on in every episode, and all this stuff and the Yakuza and people running around without pinkies all over the place and all of that shit. So like if this were actually an accurate depiction of reality, no one would live here. I mean, it's like oh my gosh, it's like a third world war torn nation. I, so that's like I said, it's like that's where when I draw this line of like the stuff that I've been through, like where do I get the impression that there's a pea underneath all of my mattresses? And it's like because there's no way that people are generally excited to be sleeping on these mattresses and they're this uncomfortable and anyone is fucking staying here. There's no, that's just not possible. So for just kind of like a light taste of it, right? I've lived here for like 13 and a half, going on 14 years. I have won like settlement and whatnot of resulting from like legal battles or like governmental report battles. Because some things, like employment, like wage theft and stuff, you can just report that to the Department of Labor, and or like things that you would just, like if a business was defrauding their customers, you just report that to the Chamber of Commerce and they investigate it. Like I've lived here for 13 and a half, going on 14 years, and the situation with my landlord that happened over the last 18 months is the 12th time I have been involved with having to take someone to court or to task with the government, and I have won every single time. Like I'm like out here slaying dragons and shit. Like, and it makes no fucking sense. I'm like a badass that's like winning every boss fight. I mean, it's just crazy. My life is like a video game. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's absurdly fucking ridiculous. So that's like when I say at the end, like I don't necessarily ever expect anyone to listen to these, right? I could totally see people buying the book that would result from me doing all of this editing, but I wouldn't necessarily ever see anybody watching these videos. I definitely can see people watching like what my other projects between D Movie Battle Royale and Raceline. I can see people watching those, and maybe there'd be a handful of people that would then be interested enough to listen to these. But all that, like this is a little bit more of a therapeutic exercise. But like I said, just for the sake of argument and how it relates to all of this, right? There's no way that there's like that everybody is having the experience that I'm having living here, and people actually like desire being here. Um, so and I recognize it too myself. Like when I say like I hate this place, but I'm like it's not Hawaii that I hate. It's my own experience here, right? And sometimes I think of it. There was a video, I think it was by like Cracked or College Humor, like one of those like content creators, and they had this video that was like five movie protagonists whose lives are actually like a living hell, but they're like they look like badasses to us. And the number one example is Neo from The Matrix, right? That it's like this would be freaking awful. Like you have this like boring ass mundane job and a regular bachelor life, and then one day like dudes in suits show up and just like the next thing you know, you're hanging off the side of the building and some dude tells you red pill or blue pill because everything is bullshit. Like, I can identify with that, right? And it's like one day there was an incident one time like, or whatever that culminated that just kind of put the idea in my head that all of this shit is orchestrated. And from there on out, I've kind of viewed things through this Twilight Zone lens. And it's like the more that I do that, even looking back into my past and stuff, I'm like, I've mentioned it before, right? It's like that time when Justin Bieber had the epiphany that he and Haley had been set up by people, and that their relationship didn't actually organically develop, right? That it's just this mix of kind of like a fear and a disappointment, like it's a letdown, right? It's just it doesn't it doesn't put a positive spin on this. It puts a very, very negative spin on this. Like, what are they even doing? Right? Why are they doing this? What would be the point? Right? What the hell would be the point? Right? Think about, I don't know. I just, I can't fathom why. Unless I guess the only thing that I can think of, and the thing that's kind of funny about this is like my longest ever relationship was only like 3 or 4 months. But while I was dating this guy, the movie The Manchurian Candidate came out, and he took me to it's like the only like movie date night we ever had, and it's like a Manchurian Candidate situation, right? Where then it's like, do they do this to like develop people into being able to identify with shit, or to as part of just like simulated training exercises? Like, I like it just are they trying to make me be someone that can appeal to the masses? Like if I were to run for president in 3 years, that I'm gonna have like millions and millions of fucking people waiting with bated breath, drooling to vote for me? Like what is this? What is the fucking point? Because I don't know why in the hell they would ever think I'd want to do that once this is over. Right? Like I said, I don't like I have four questions that I'm seeking to kind of flesh out when it comes to race line. And that's, why are they doing like what are they doing? Why are they doing this? Um, what was it? Oh my gosh, my four questions. Let me open them because why not? Yeah, my four questions. What the fuck is this? Who the fuck is doing it? Why in the fuck are they doing it? And how the fuck did I get chosen? She, this girl walking by, I did not even know she was like walking a husky, but she's got a chihuahua in a bag that's like slung over her shoulder and then like rotated around to like kind of perched right above her booty. And it was so funny because I was not expecting that when she walked by that she was going to have a little dog in a booty pouch. Um, anyway, um, I love how everybody just wanders around too with earbuds now, because it's a little bit rare. Every once in a while, somebody walks by and they could probably hear me do it, but hopefully people don't think I'm nuts. They either think I'm on the phone or recognize I'm not just sitting here talking to myself. But at the end of the day, I'm just sitting here talking to myself. But whatever, I don't give a shit anymore. Um, but um, but yeah, so this is my little script for the Raceline intro, right? I'm going to tell my story with these four questions in mind. What the fuck is this? Who the fuck is doing it? Why the fuck are they doing it? And how the fuck did I get chosen? That's it. I obviously know the where and when because I exist, not that anyone seems to care, right? Welcome to Raceline, where my life is as weird as it is whack. But this is extraordinarily unfucking pleasant, right? Then sometimes I think, and I don't mean this with any kind of like weird, like religious, grandiose illusion. It's just an example, right? Imagine being Mary, like you're a virgin, you're living your life right, everything's going cool, everything's going good, and then one day, right, this angel shows up, tells you that God has chosen you to be the mother of like the chosen one, and that you're pregnant now, even though it's out of wedlock, and you've never even got to enjoy sexual relations, and now you're pregnant, and the kid that you're going to have is going to be the savior of the world. And then you start thinking about things like the seven dolours of Mary, right? Like watching Jesus be persecuted and crucified, and yada, yada, yada. And then you just have to think that, like, none of this ever ends up amounting to a hill of positive beings for Mary until she is assumed into heaven, assumpted. And oh my God, see, that brings me full circle too, because I was raised Roman Catholic, and what's the name of the Catholic Church in my hometown that I was raised in? St. Mary's Assumption Church, right? It's another piece, it's another P at the bottom of my pile of mattresses, right? So, like, there's a part of me that's like, I've been dealing with this shit for so long that I've become more and more solid in my convictions without being able to, like, immediately articulate why when put on the spot, because it's just a part of who I am. And so when I sit to that, sometimes it's like things like I hate myself, but it's not me that I hate. It's the person I am as a result of them doing this to me. Um, and there's nothing that I can ever do to reverse this shit. This is just where it all is, you know? It is what it is. Um, yeah. So, moving along. Oh, you can't imagine another person having a fundamental psychological quality that you don't possess. It would be imagining the unimaginable. Manipulation to a narcissist is like trying to drive a driverless car. There's no steering wheel. The attempt is utterly futile. If all you've ever known are driverless cars, it won't occur to you to learn to drive. How can someone who doesn't even know why they are doing things manipulate someone else into doing things? Because remember, that's one of the diagnostic criteria attributes, right? Is that they're unaware of their own motivations. Well, if they can't make their own decisions and they're unaware of their own motivations, how in the fuck are they manipulating other people? Right? It doesn't make any sense. So then you just, like I said, so as far as for my hypothesis, like, okay, well, armed with that though, because it seems like they manipulate people, right? It's not, they're not trying to manipulate you. It's like the story about Las Vegas, right? When she said, I really thought you wanted to go to Vegas, but then when you pressure her to explain herself, it's like, because nobody would turn down a free trip to Vegas, and because she can't calculate that being around her makes the trip have a cost, right? That spending the weekend with her in Las Vegas was me incurring the cost of having to put up with her and her bullshit for a weekend, her 21st birthday weekend, no less. I'm sure she thought I should be flattered that she wanted to spend her 21st birthday weekend with me being the person she dragged along to Vegas. You know what I'm saying? So that it's like, it doesn't even occur to her that when I said I didn't want to go, it was because I didn't want to go, right? So, anyway. Narcissists are perpetually on autopilot, and they think everyone else is too. One day she casually insisted that everyone, all the time, are saying and doing whatever they feel is necessary to get what they need or want out of other people. That was the moment that I knew she was different. Bait the hook to catch the fish, she said nonchalantly, as if I was the only person on earth who wasn't constantly acting solely out of self-interested ulterior motive. That was the moment that she put me on guard about herself. She told me flat out that every time she initiated an interaction with anyone, she expected to get something out of it. Way to out yourself, bitch. Right? So, like, basically, every interaction she's having with other people, she has an ulterior motive, even if it's just getting you to look at her, right, or whatever. But like, she's not just an organically, like, functioning being, right? She's constantly on the lookout. I was thinking about this earlier today too. I was like, it's almost like they're constantly just trying to get information out of people. Like, they just want, like, someone who's pressuring people to learn all of their secrets. Like, they don't actually want to get to know you to be your friend. They want, like, a dossier of shit they could use against you someday, right? Because I think it's if you think about like narcissists, and then we talk about people narking on people, right? Telling on them, right? So that even the word narcissist is like narc assist, where it's almost like that what they're trying to do is get information about you that they could like run tell that to somebody that would, get you in trouble, or juicy gossip that they could use to entice someone else, to talk to them or barter with someday or something like that. And when I started thinking about it from that perspective,
I know, but I'm
it
just saying.
it kind of seemed to there's a little bit of like a half-ass low-key truth to that, right? Where that it's like that is kind of like what they actually seem to be doing. They're not necessarily trying to manipulate people, um, but they're pressing you to get stuff from you um, that would benefit themselves in some way that they perceive being beneficial. Okay. If you encounter someone with narcissistic traits or tendencies who is clearly trying to manipulate you, as opposed to simply begging or attempting to sway you, you're probably dealing with someone with ASPD, right? Antisocial personality disorder, and not NPD. So this is actually kind of interesting to me because I'm trying now to draw this hard line as like that we think of these being like those dark triad, or whatever disorders that there's maybe a little bit of a difference where someone with antisocial personality disorder who knows they're different, that like I said, it's like that's a lot of observational learning that you have to do to be able to figure out what causes guilt and shame and remorse in order to manipulate people into situations where you can use that as leverage to get what you want from people. And someone who is just simply narcissistic, just really being on autopilot and not even aware of their own motivations and things, never even picking up on the fact that these things exist to be attended to in the first place, as being maybe like a potential like here's the difference between these people, right? This explains why they draw in so many empaths. Empathetic people are able to tap into this metapersonal headspace more easily than others, and as a result, the narcissist is able to bond with them in a manner that has not been possible with most people. An empath can immediately sense that this person is just on autopilot. The trait that makes a narcissist challenging to bond with is instantly assuaged by the empath's ability to intuitively understanding what they lack and overlook it for a while. Right? So, like, what empaths have, so in psychology there's this idea of like it's not an idea, there's positive symptoms or traits, and there's negative. Positive just means that it's something additional to what would be considered neurotypical, for instance, and something that's negative is something that's missing. So what narcissists are missing, empaths have the thing that fills in the gap in order to bridge what would be lacking in their partnership. And the empath similarly can't help bridging the gap. There is something genuine and endearing about a person who isn't taking the time to be conniving and doesn't have an ulterior motive. This is why love bombing is so effective for the narcissist. The recipient can rest assured that they are being truthful, but the reverse is also true. The narcissist can become incredibly emotionally injured at the slightest slight. Time heals all wounds, and eventually they will hoover, which is sucking you back in, usually with more love bombing. And this cycle isn't healthy. The empath becomes attached as a perfect partner, a yang to the narcissist's yin at first. Over time, the empath, or any partner for that matter, becomes worn down because the narcissist, unaware of what they are doing, consistently engages in what amounts to exploitation of their partners. Little by little, the narcissist will erode your sense of self by trying to control the way you dress, the food you eat, the shows you watch, the hobbies you engage in, etc., turning you into what they know is the best version of yourself, the version that validates them and makes their life comfortable and convenient. When they see the you they believe to be the best version of you, they are proud of themselves for helping you blossom. You make them feel better about themselves by conceding to the changes they insist you make. One drop at a time, that little black dot in your white teardrop of yang grows bigger and bigger until the only white left in what used to be a well-balanced yin-yang is the little white dot that remains as the glimmer in their eye when they look at you. They idealized this version of you the moment they met you and sensed a connection, and they have been driving you toward it ever since. Essentially, what happens in relationships with narcissists is that they will believe you like them if they like you, which makes it exceedingly difficult to get them to back off without gray rocking, which refers to the spectrum of reactions from ignoring the narcissist's bad behavior to ignoring them altogether for a time, completely cutting ties, or at the most extreme, simply just ghosting them altogether. Even though the individual with NPD seems to view people as pawns or tools, this is not entirely accurate. This is kind of funny. This is making me think about the situation with him where after I left the way that I did, and then eventually he sent me the email and said, if you hated me that much, why didn't you tell me? And then was saying things like, oh, if you ever want to come back, you're always welcome, and blah, 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 blah. And it's just weird because it's like, because you're one of their pawns. Like it's all some kind of weird ass setup. You're benefiting in some way from having me around, but you were also always just doing their bidding. So it's like, even if I were to tell you that I don't like you very much, it's not even him that I'm saying I don't like. Right? So it's like he wouldn't have been offended if I had told him, like, I fucking hate this shit. You're a jackass. Right? You're an irritating jackass. But at the end of the day, right, I don't know. Right? I don't know whether that's the case. So anyway, my point being that sorry, something happened. Like I can't like man, some of these people be smoking weed that straight up smells like skunk spray, and it like I mean, like y'all know good weed exists, right? Like, have you ever seen the movie Totally Killer? And like she goes back to the '80s, and like the weed that they're smoking is so like it's like '80s swag, and she's able to smoke so much of it that the stoner chick is like wicked impressed, right? She's like, oh my God, like that amount should take down a horse. I can't believe you're still standing, kind of a thing. Like y'all realize it's 2025, right? Y'all out here smelling like a Grateful Dead concert, and I just don't understand. All right. Anyway. Um, that but like I said, like basically that when I essentially just turned around and like ghosted Mel, right? And he's like, he really can't understand why that would happen, well, because I don't know what's going on and I ran away from you the first chance that I got, but it doesn't occur to them. There's the part I'm freaking waxing here because I totally forgot what I was going to say and how to relate that back to this, but it doesn't matter. Even though the individual with NPD seems to view people as pawns or tools, this is not entirely accurate. Narcissists believe that the better you make you feel, the better you must be, as if they are some sort of existential barometer. Mistaking their own emotional reactions and sensory input causes them to view the world as though they are in touch with the philosophical Platonic form of the good. When they see an opportunity to advance themselves in some way that happens to involve another person, they are not motivated to manipulate them per se. The narcissist subconsciously understands that the path that is positive for them is the ethically right path. It is too weak to say that they merely believe this. Philosophically, knowledge has been defined as justified true belief. Narcissists self justify that what they believe is true, i.e., if they believe it, then it must be true. I have tales of two senses in which this is expressed. Case in point one. Narcissists will insist that you do something with them, but not being willing to hold up the end of the deal that usually goes along with that. Since they want to do it, it's the right thing to do, never mind the social obligations that they may become beholden to. She used to pressure me to do things with her that cost money that I didn't have because she wanted to do them, but also didn't want to do them by herself. I don't understand why I was her lone target. Sometimes the situation was one in which I would go willingly if she paid my way. If your friend wanted to go to a concert of their favorite artist whom you have never even been interested in listening to, but they didn't want to go alone, why should you pay for the ticket to something you're not interested in so that your friend isn't lonely? If they really want a date, they should find one and or pay for it. Or find someone who actually wants to go. Why did she always want to drag me to things and then also make me pay for it? Right. There's a restaurant. I worked as a housekeeper at a hotel, and the restaurant that was in the hotel happened to be one of her favorites. And one of the things that they would give the guests was like a 10% off coupon, and then the guests would always leave them behind. So I had all these like 10% off coupons, and she would always want to go to this restaurant for dinner and stuff. And like the one time we finally did go, and we ate, and I had leftovers, like, and whatever, because you get your 10% off. You order the appetizer and the entree. I got like the stuffed mushrooms, which came with like four stuffed mushrooms. I ate one of those and then ate all of my entree and boxed up and took the three mushrooms home. Bitch ate my mushrooms too, right? And was like, "Oh, like that's cool. Like I'll buy you more when we go back again." Right? And so, but it's like in her mind, this isn't purposeful manipulation. This is her autopilot, right? This is her normal state of being. There's no this, she didn't do that to be able to manipulate me into going to the restaurant again. She just honestly wanted my goddamn mushrooms and then ate them, thinking that if she told me, "Oh, I'll just buy you more when we go to the restaurant again," that like it's all cool, right? And it's like, girl, I didn't want to go with you the first time. Like, oh my God. Because I mean, it's like I'm working at this hotel, right? I'm making $7.25 an hour. This is actually a pretty decent, like sit down full service steakhouse kind of place. So like by the time I ordered the entree, the mushrooms and the entree, even with the 10% off, this was like a $60 meal. So like I had to work 10 hours to pay for this. Like, why in the fuck would I want to go here? But because she kind of comes from this little bit of a wealthy back, like this is nothing to her to just go to a place like this. And it never seemed to quite, it doesn't quite hit people this way, right? And I think that this kind of holds for like a lot of people who've always like grown up, even just like with some modicum of financial comfort, they really, really, really don't understand like not being able to afford things. Um, and I think we really see this now. And this is something I think because I watch a lot of like videos on YouTube that kind of have to do with like the political climate and the economy and stuff like that, and the TikToks and this and that. There's a lot of people out there who seem to go grocery shopping and think that they should be able to just afford the things that they were used to eating growing up on. He was very much like this, right? If he wanted Frosted Flakes, it had to be Kellogg's Frosted Flakes that was like $7 a box. It couldn't be a bag of malto meal, frosted corn, whatever's for like $5 a bag that had twice as much cereal as the box. There was times that I thought I was like, I should just buy one of those on the low and then just keep sneak refilling his box of Kellogg's cereal so that he stops overspending this money because he doesn't have it. Right? It's like he gets to the end of the month and he's like starving on ramen because he thinks he can afford a $7 box of cereal. Right. But anyway, all that is like I digress. I just say like that. I think that there's kind of an element too that like now, as those people have gotten poorer themselves, right, less financially solvent, they think that they should just be able to afford the things that they want instead of realizing that they need to learn how to live within their means. I always think like um, there's things that happen with the business world. Like, if you want to think grand scale, I'm talking about things like bailing out the banks after the housing crisis of 2008. But even in lower scale, like locally speaking and stuff, when some of these businesses will be like, or think like the whole eggs thing, right? Eggs got so expensive. There's a lot of local bakeries and stuff, right? So now let's say like your angel food cake used to be, in case you don't know, angel food cake is mostly egg white. So it's like, let's say if your angel food cake that you used to make took an entire dozen eggs, and the dozen eggs used to cost $3, and you sold your angel food cake for $20. But now that a dozen eggs is like $9, you want your cakes to be 35, but nobody's fucking paying $35 for an angel food cake. And now you're going to go out of business, and so you kind of petition, or you go to a bank and you want a loan so that you can afford to buy eggs and keep your prices the same, and blah 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 blah, while we weather the storm of inflation and shit. But I feel like as a person who's grown up in poverty and been in situations, I mean, it's like, what are they telling people that want to be on Medicaid or food stamp? Like, well, tough tits, shit happens. Your business is going to close, right? Something happens to you that's not your fault, but now you can't afford to pay rent. Your landlord's going to look you dead in the eye and be like, well, then fucking pack the shit. Like, nobody cares. But for some reason, when you're in this, there's a sweet spot that you can achieve where not just other people, but the government itself starts to care about your solvency. That they just don't care when it's people in a different situation, right? And it's a little, whatever. But anyway, that's a whole other weird soapbox that's off topic. That I don't know. I'm just kind of going with the flow here. Like I said, this is this is therapeutic and editorial. It's not. This is for me, and I don't know, anybody who wants to listen is welcome to it. All right, it's like welcome to my Alpha Bitch podcast. Okay. The narcissist subconsciously understands that the path that is positive for them is the ethically right path. It is too weak to say that they merely believe this. Oh, we were like way down here, right? Yeah. So narcissists will insist that you do something with them, but not being willing to hold up the end of the deal that usually goes along with that. Um, Her response when I said I couldn't afford it would inevitably be that she would front me, but I'd have to pay her back. This was somewhat weird to me because if she didn't have the money to pay straight up when she's begging me to come with her somewhere, then why didn't she understand that I may never have the money to pay her back? That's an awkwardly worded sentence, but like, um, it's so like I said, like this restaurant was kind of a. I feel like $60 might have been an overinflation. Maybe it was closer to like 40, right, or whatever. But like, so let's say if it would cost $100, right? It's like if it would cost $100 for the two of you to go eat at this restaurant, and she wants to go so bad, but she doesn't want to go alone. I feel like at a certain, but I'm saying no because that $50 is like 8 hours of work. That's a whole shift to me to then turn around and just go back and spend it right back at my workplace. Right. It kind of defeats the. I don't want to go spend $50 on this meal. Right. I've got to pay the internet bill. I've got to pay for the stuff I need, right? I'm not trying to spend this money. And there was a point too while I was living with her that it was like she would say things to me like you need to just treat yourself sometimes, Kat. Like you never treat yourself. And I'm like, girl, I can barely get rent together. What are you talking about? And like when she would say treat yourself, she would mean like go for a massage or like buy yourself a new cocktail dress. Like she's talking just blow $100 on something that you want but don't necessarily need, while simultaneously also being privy to the fact that I was struggling to make rent. I mean, there was times that I'm just like, this bitch is retarded, and I'm starting to like use that word, but I'm going to use it because I don't know what else to say. I'm using it facetiously, right? It's like this girl is slow. Like I don't know how I can't pay rent, but I somehow have money to like go get a massage or like go get my nails done. Like, I, it makes no sense, right? Like, so some of these at the extreme ends of this, it's just they don't make any sense. Um, but they seem completely confident, at least like that they're supposed to. But anyway, but my point here just being is like if I don't have the money today to just go out to dinner with you at this restaurant, what makes you think like on payday I'm gonna just magically have it to give it to you to pay you back, right? Because if that were the case, then why wouldn't I just say we're gonna have to wait and go until like after I get paid? Like why do we need to go today? Right? If it's the Friday between Friday paydays and you want to go to this restaurant, I'd be like, we have to go next week when I get paid then because I'm not gonna. Why would I want you to like? Why do we need to go tonight, right? You see what I'm saying? It's like there's no talking to these people. She'd be like, because I really want to go now. I haven't been in a long time, da, 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 da. And she would just beg and beg and beg, and it's like you're begging your roommate slash friend like you're begging like a 5-year-old is begging their mommy in the store to get something out of the 25-cent gumball machine. Like it just at some point it got to be so immature that it was actually just kind of embarrassing, right? There's a little bit of secondhand embarrassment that started brewing a little bit, right? Where that okay, it's like after a while, it's like, yeah, we can't be friends because you act like a fucking child, and it's detrimental to me. Um, So yeah, she can obviously understand being strapped for cash. Why couldn't she just take it for what it was? I'm not interested in spending money on this. Not tonight, not next week, not ever. Not interested didn't work because often the discussion would become a sort of dueling excuses matchup with no way to stop her rebugging, right? Her rebuttal slash begging, her rebugging without caving in or blowing up. She wholeheartedly believed that I should want to go wherever it was that she wanted us to go. right? You should be wanting to just do this. Now, think about my Twilight Zone conspiracy theory. If I volunteered for this and I know what's going on, I should have an itinerary and a roadmap, right? So it's like if you were on a treasure hunt or doing a scavenger hunt and you know that the next thing is you need to go to this store and get this item, I should want to go to the store, right? So why am I fighting tooth and nail to not go to the store to continue with the competition? Right? Why are you not like why are you so stubborn? This is one of the things that when I mentioned that there was a moment, an incident, a time period or whatever, when it kind of became like elucidated to me that a lot of this was just a scripted setup. And one of my friends said to me, that she's like you've always been stubborn, and I have no idea what she's talking about, right? And so I kind of started thinking, and it's like this particular friend grew up in a wealthy like real estate owning family in Kansas City, and there was a day where she wanted to go to lunch. And I said, I don't have any money. And she's like, we don't have to go anywhere that expensive. Like, we can just go to Wendy's or something, somewhere with a dollar menu. It doesn't have to be anywhere fancy. And I'm like, no, but like I don't have any money, right? It's like I have 35 cents. I think it finally got to this point because she's like re-bugging, right? She's just like, come on, let's go. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, girl, I have 35 cents, right? Like Murphy Lee said, right? Coming from nothing to something, and by nothing, I mean pockets full of lint and buttons. Like, bitch, are you deaf? Like, you are a college student getting A's in upper level, goddamn near graduating classes, and your ass doesn't fucking understand something as simple as somebody not having any money. What the hell is wrong with you? Right? And so finally, we kind of had to have an intervention with her because of our little Sex in the City foursome friend group. She was the one that had kind of come from money. She was our Charlotte. And we had to kind of start, we're like, girl, like when we say we literally, we do not have any, we don't mean like, I just don't want to touch my savings or I've already pre-budgeted to make my car payment a week or like, we don't mean like we just don't feel like spending anything right now. We mean there isn't anything to spend. I can't buy anything at Wendy's, right? And so when all of this was going down, her roommate, who then was actually also one of my friends, because when I was in the philosophy department, he was too as a major. So then we ended up having classes together. And so like kind of my friend group from my first stint at K-State, and then I graduated in 2006, moved back to Florida for a few years, and then went back to get a second degree. And my friend groups then kind of blended, right? So at this point, after they had graduated, they were living together, and he had said something to me about the struggles here in Hawaii, and he said like you should just cash in your chips and get out of there. And I was like, I don't know what chips you think I have to cash in, right? And so all of these things kind of start to pile up, and I start thinking to myself like. It's really starting to feel like there's something going on behind my back that people think I'm a part of, and I've literally never even heard of it before. Like people keep pressuring me to spend money I don't have or like answer questions about things I don't know anything about or like, why don't you ever treat yourself? It's like, does everybody just have some secret income that they're not telling me about? And now I kind of look back and I'm like, I think all these bitches were getting paid to fuck with me. I think all of my so-called quote unquote friends were getting paid to fuck with me. I think that since I've been over here in Hawaii, I don't think the people, there's times, and I know this sounds fucking crazy. I feel crazy for fucking saying it. I feel like I'm not even actually accessing, like, I feel like my internet is like a VPN and things have been bricked or like my phone has been cloned or like I'm not actually being shown an accurate picture even of what's going on. Like, it seems like I have 150 Facebook friends that are all people that I know, but they could all be bots that are just programmed to say to me whatever should be said in the moment that falls in line with whatever the mission is that I don't have an itinerary or a roadmap for. Right? So it's just this strange, like maybe it wasn't even my friend that was telling me I've always been stubborn. And oh, so the other part of that conversation was she was starting a nonprofit. She works in like psychological social services, and she wanted to start a nonprofit to help children with autism. And this was back in like 2013. And she was asking people to help her with various aspects of setting up a new business, like including like drawing a company logo, helping her write the grant papers, writing a business plan, and this whole nine yards. And I had offered, because I've done pixel art and been interested in like graphic design as a hobby for a long time, I offered to help her come up with a logo. And she was like, I kind of wanted you to be the one who wrote my business plan. And I'm like, writing a business, that seems kind of weird that you're wanting to start a nonprofit, meaning you're probably going to want government grants and all of this. And like, if you're wanting to get loans, like, what am I getting out of doing something as major and somehow pulling out of my ass, writing a business plan for a nonprofit to help autistic kids? I don't know the first fucking thing about that. And this, I don't mean this in some sort of bitchy way. I mean this strictly in like a professional sense. I don't have any give a fuck about this, right? Like I don't have any like inclination and never like I don't know anything about this topic. Like I don't have a clue what I would even write. And she's like, man, like I thought you had some integrity. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what the fuck does integrity have to do with you thinking that I should somehow pull a business plan out of my ass for free? Like, what the fuck? So, like I said, so I'm seeing like you've always been stubborn. And I'm like, how am I being stubborn? Because I'm kind of taking issue with the fact that you think I would be able to write a business plan to start a business. That's something that I've never even considered being involved in doing. Where would I even begin? I don't know what the fuck you're talking, like, I don't know why you would think this is a thing that I could do, right? It's just bizarre. It reminded me of like, because I've always been overweight. I've been athletic most of my life, but I'm not much of a runner. But even when I run, like long distances are my thing, or like for like, I run in no fucking like 200-meter relays. What the fuck? And then when I'm in high school, they're like, hey, like we want you to go out for track with us and be on our like to run the 4x200 meter, because I guess there was only, like I said, I'm from a really small school. So there was only like three girls that wanted to go out for track in high school. And so they were like, yeah, like we want you to go out for track with us and run the 4x200 relay. And I'm like, there is no race. The 200-meter dash is the worst race on the planet. It is wretched. I will run the mile. I actually did compete in junior high in short sprints. And stuff. So like I will run the 50, the 75, the 100, or like the fucking mile. But the 200, the 400, and the 800 can kiss my lily white ass. No way. I will run a 10K before I will be on a 4x200 relay team. Okay? Fuck you and the horse you rode in on and whatever delusional cereal you had for breakfast, because absolutely not. I cannot, for the life of me, I remember being completely blindsided, flabbergasted when she asked me, right? Like this girl that I have known since we were 4 years old, since we can remember, approached me one day and in her friendliest possible voice asked my fat ass to go out for track to be on the 4x200 relay team. You must be out of your mind, right? So, like I said, I'll have these experiences and then be told that I'm stubborn and people thought I had some integrity, and I can't even figure out how to make those adjectives connect to the situation. I don't know. I don't know what she's getting at, right? What am I supposedly integrated into to know what it is that you're actually wanting me to do for you, right? I don't have a clue, right? I still, to this day, it's been 12 fucking years. I've never gotten answers. That's a long time to wonder why friends think that you can just pull magic spells out of your fucking ass. like, like I don't know. And then she's like, because I'm like, what would you do as the person who's starting the business? Like, why would you not be responsible for writing the business plan? And she's, like, well, I did all of the grant writing. And I'm like, how did you write the grant? Because I don't know anything about this either. So I'm like, tickle me if I'm backwards. But like, what, how? How did you fill out grant paperwork without a business plan? Like like I said, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck she was talking about. But then when I'm trying to ask, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you aren't making any sense. What the hell are you talking about? Oh, I thought you had some integrity. You've always been a little stubborn. Like I said, 12 years later, and I still don't have answers about this shit. Like, whatever this is has literally ruined friendships for me. Like, I look at this and I'm like, it doesn't matter whether that was her being weird or if I just haven't even talked to these people in 20 years and they've had no idea, that whole thing where it's like, you could like friends can go years without speaking and then see each other and it's like no time has passed, right? Like, I don't have any social compass for what's actually going on. All I know is that I'm just here by my goddamn self and have been for years. And at this point, it's evolved that I can't even trust to talk to my brother anymore. Like, the person that it breaks my heart the most to think is actually actively involved in caring about this enough to purposefully be involved with, like, the worst case scenario is that these people really think that this is so cool that they don't care that I'm miserable and suffering, because it's all going to be okay in the end. They live in this fucking delusional fantasy world. Like, is everyone I've ever known in my life just completely batshit nuts? Right? Including my brother, including my parents. Is everybody completely mad? Is everybody completely mad? Is and that's like I said, I was like, I don't think it's okay to say that when it's all over we can explain it to you and why you had to be in the dark will make perfect sense. It'll never make sense. It'll never make sense and this will never be okay. Right? I I don't like, even given all of that, I don't like comparing this to extreme moments in history, but I really feel I'm like, this is like, you know, this is like asking a black person to just say like, well, I mean, slavery wasn't all that bad. At least we had a roof over our heads and meaningful work. All the shit that like these fucking white assholes that actually want them to just say so that they don't want reparations, right? Like, but I feel like asking me to just like forgive, forget, move on, accept that like my life has actually been a really interesting adventure and all's well that ends well and better late than never and like whatever the fuck platitudes you can come up with. But this is something that I'm just supposed to like embrace when it's all over with is asking something so insultingly inhumane that it elevates the cruel and unusualness of this to a level that I think has been unprecedented in the human history. Like and like I said, when I say that, I don't mean to say that what's happened to me is like worse than the Holocaust or slavery. What I is very psychological, right? That it's like asking someone who was kidnapped at 8 years old and chained to a radiator and raped and repeatedly and beaten by somebody to stand in the courtroom the day that they're sentenced and read a statement that says that they forgive this person. It's like, I mean, that shit just blows my mind. Like, I can't imagine like how or why people do that. Like when they say that, it's like, I have to forgive you not because you deserve it, but because I do. I can't wrap my head. I don't even understand how psychologically that works. How do you feel better about the situation by forgiving them for doing it to just move on? Like, just be pissed at them for the rest of your life. Like, I don't understand why you need to do that. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. I'm just saying, like, I get this distinct, I have this fear, right? This fear and disappointment that when this is all over, I'm going to be expected to just like let it go. And I think that that's incredibly offensive to ask me to just let it go. Right. So, like I said, like when having that conversation with her back then and being told, like, I thought you had some integrity. You've always been stubborn. Like making it sound like I am the problem in the situation because I'm stubborn and don't have any integrity. When what maybe their meaning is, I thought you knew what was going on And now the reason why it's hard to get you to do things, right? Like go to lunch at Wendy, or whatever. Like the reason, like you actually meant you don't have any money, meaning not only I only have 35 cents financially, but also if you think of like money and intel as currency, right? I don't have any money. So it's like I don't even have a conversation to have with you to go out to lunch for, right? So it's almost like if this whole thing was some kind of puzzle and everybody's supposed to be shuffling around the pieces, um, and kind of playing who's who, right? Um, I feel like people just keep putting me in the wrong role. That is an interestingly ornate backed couch. And it's still okay. Anyway, this guy just drove by with a couch in the back of his truck that was like it's a fully upholstered, but the back was like cut in the shape of like an ornamental fleur de lis kind of shape. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like that before. Like usually, like you'll see where like there's like a wood molding that's like really fancy and stuff on like an otherwise upholstered couch. But no, that was just straight up like tight bound upholstery. Anyway, no. That is crazy. That is a low riding pickup truck bumping goodies by Sierra coming in behind a Lamborghini. Just FYI, I was a little bit distracted. Um, like I said, this is a relatively wealthy neighborhood, so there's definitely some good, like, interesting vehicles of all sorts that come through here. Um, anyway, so one time I likened it to this. I was like, thinking about like remaking movies and how they remake movies and stuff all the time, and how like take the movie Clue for instance, that there isn't anything about per se like a lot of the characters in the movie Clue are not necessarily gender specific, right? Like, there's no reason that Miss Scarlet can't be like Mr. Scarlet, who's a pimp instead of a madam. There's no reason that Professor Plum has to be a dude, right? There's no reason that Mrs. White couldn't be a dude, right? A lot of these characters, there's no reason why, you couldn't cast people of different gender and just do a lot of just swapping. So like you could have here's the list of the whatever the 8 or 9 like speaking characters that are in Clue. Let's just say it's 10, 12 around it, whatever. Doesn't matter. Right? Here's the 10 speaking parts in the movie Clue. We're gonna remake it just straight up. We're like a straight up remake, just updating it with current like really popular actors. So then you get given a list. Here's the 10 people that have been cast to be in the new Clue. It's Zendaya, Timothy Chalamet, Zac Efron, John Cena, Scarlett Johansson, whatever, right? You give a list of like 10 A-list actors and actresses and then ask people, who do you think is playing what role, right, in our little Clue remake? And then the game is that, right? So now talking like the quote unquote casino, right? The game is to figure out who is actually playing these roles. And so then in Hollywood, there's this little game going on where at the parties and then there's, they're everybody's trying to figure out by talking to the 10 people on the list who is cast in what role in the remake of Clue, right? Um, and let's say everybody's got like bets going on here and there, right? And so there's money on the line from betting. Some people are just, doing it for fun, so that, whatever, yada, yada, yada. Um, I'm on the list of 10 people that have been cast in the remake, but I've never even heard of the movie before. So when people are trying to figure out which role I'm playing in the remake of Clue, I don't even know what the fuck anybody's talking about. And I always felt like that's the best metaphor that I can really come up with for how I feel about shit. Um, and that I yeah, like I said, I feel like it's benign and it's easy to understand, right? I feel like it's relatable enough and easy to understand that, like, yeah, you could be doing this thing that seems to be so like, hasn't everybody of a certain age, right? Hasn't everybody seen Clue? Or like it's a board game, like you've heard of it, but this would be the funny thing, right? But say, like, if you were familiar with the board game Clue, and then you're like, okay, they're making a movie about the board game Clue, but then it would be, how would you ever figure out who was cast into which roles? Because the board game, doesn't give you any script information, right? It's just a board game. So like even if I at the very least I'm familiar with the board game, which would be the board, BORED. I'm familiar with the board game. I'm familiar with the layout of Honolulu. I'm familiar with what my life consists of. I'm familiar with being bored and lonely. I'm familiar with whatever the fuck the game itself is, but I don't know anything about, I don't know anything about the movie that's been written that's based on it. So then I don't, when people come at me being like, so, are you looking forward to getting to do the iconic flames on the sides of my face? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Right? Like you would sound completely batshit. And so I sometimes I feel like there's this element of this that do people really not understand how crazy they fucking sound? Because they're so sure that I know enough, that I know what's going on, that it never even occurs to them that attempting to get me to give them information just sounds like they're losing their marbles, right? Their marbles have rolled under my pile of mattresses, and I just keep getting increasingly more uncomfortable. So I feel like that's a nice little in game sewn up for all this. So let's move on with the book. Oh man, I scrolled up. No. Okay. I think it's interesting how I get ahead of myself because I just saw like three paragraphs from now I'm going to talk about the problem of like this expense just isn't worth it to me, right? Whatever. But anyway, so she would balk at the idea that I wasn't interested in the activity because, well, how could you not be interested? She would regularly want to go out to lunch at her favorite restaurant, which was an overpriced wannabe Bennigan's inside the hotel I worked at as a housekeeper. I got 10% off coupons all the time because guests would leave them behind in the room. It really says something when the only way a hotel can get guests to eat at the restaurant is with a discount. And remember, this is her favorite restaurant. Okay, but I digress. I really wasn't interested in going out to eat to the tune of $20 a plate when I only made $7 an hour. Call me crazy, but I don't think sous vide mashed potatoes and a 3-ounce steak are worth 3 hours of manual labor, right? It just is, especially when you can cook, right? I could have made better at home for myself for cheaper, right? I could have cooked for us. And the thing too is like she wasn't a bad cook herself, so it's like you've got to know that it's just nice to go out and sit and have people serve you and da, 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 da. And it's like, well, then like let's go somewhere other than where I were anyway. You know what I mean? Like we could go to like Chili's or Applebee's or like the Little Apple Brewery. Like why are we constantly going back to this place? Okay. Anyway, of course, we eventually went. I bought a stuffed mushroom appetizer that came with 4 mushrooms. I ate one and took the other 3 to go for my lunch the next day after work. When I got home, she told me she ate my mushrooms, but she would replace them the next time we went. I really don't think it occurred to her that she was quote unquote manipulating me to go there again. She genuinely thought that I should get out more or something. Or that now that I've been once, I would also want to go all the time. Not to beat a dead horse, but remember, this is her favorite restaurant. That means that it's the best, so why wouldn't anyone who's ever eaten there not want to go there all the time? It's the Vegas trip all over again, right? We're at the mall inside of Planet Hollywood. Oh, okay, on the Vegas trip again. We're at the mall inside of Planet Hollywood, and we get stopped by one of those skincare hustlers. She pressures us to try this skin softening treatment. You know, the stuff that sloughs off grody balls of dead skin cells and dirt. It's basically just hyaluronic acid gel. That stuff. This shit that I could get at a department store for $8, and she begged me to go in with her on it when the lady knocked off 50%, bringing the price per item down to about $30. She, true to form, said that she would spot me. There was no end in sight to this two-way sales pitch. Meanwhile, she was more than vocal about her stellar negotiation tactics and patted herself on the back for her ability to barter and haggle. Right. Case in point two, doing favors that you don't find helpful or remarkable, yet they seem dumbfounded or even hurt when you aren't thankful. This usually happens because they don't realize that them wanting you to have something doesn't mean that you want to have it, and that this is an incredibly important distinction for healthy, cooperative interpersonal relationships. So now, like I said, remember what I was just saying about like if I don't have the roadmap and the itinerary, right, why would I want this thing, right? This is something that only the person you think I am would want. So it's like for some reason, it seems like people consistently just thought that I was really fucking dumb instead of piecing it together that I'm the one that doesn't know what's going on. Right? It's almost like I said, going back to my Clue remake, right? If the list, like, if for some reason the list of 10 names was sent around inadvertently or accidentally touted as a confirmed cast list, and not a single person on it even knows that any studio is wanting to reproduce Clue. Eventually, don't you think people would put it together that they accidentally released just like their wish list of casted actors, right? That what you saw wasn't the actual official cast list, it was just kind of the dream cast. And that now you're actually out here like bothering, Zendaya and Zac Efron and all these people. You can't bother John Cena because no one can find him because he's invisible, right? So, I mean, he's lucky, right? Good for him, right? Thank God nobody's fucking hassling you, right? When obviously John Cena is playing the maid. I mean, come on, he looks great in a tight skirt. All right. So that being said, so like, why, why in the fuck, right? I don't understand why repeatedly I find myself in these situations where people think that I'm just stubborn or stupid instead of realizing that I genuinely don't have any idea what the fuck they're talking about. He did stuff like this all the time. Quirky things like putting the fan that was solely directed at me on oscillate and then enthusiastically pointing it out to me as though it will benefit me in some way. Now it's not just blowing directly on you, he'd say with total confidence that he just rocked my world. Oh, I said it that way on purpose, I responded. He'd just shrug and mutter something about me putting it back the way it was. No, you put it back the way it was before you involved yourself in something that doesn't even affect you. People can consistently point out to a narcissist that they are problematic, but they will never see it. They're just trying to be helpful. Why are you mad? We, as an objective and reasonably considerate observer, interpret this as a self centered passive aggression, but it's not. The narcissist is being completely serious. They don't understand what they've done to upset you. In order for the thought to count, though, there has to be a thought. Another example was when he would go to the store and bring back things. Another example was when he would go to the store and bring back things that he thought I would want. Sometimes not even the store. People in the building would give him things and he would pass off whatever he didn't want to me like everything was a precious gift. Like this motherfucker would treat me like I was just some sort of like hoarding raven. It was so bizarre. I remember the time, I don't even know, they must have dug these out of like this a deep dark closet down in the community room space. But this man came upstairs one day with like Red Book magazines from 1987, and I was like, why in the fuck would I want those? I mean, but the funny thing though is like for the vintage quality, like it might have been interesting to like look through them just for the sake of it or whatever. But I mean, but it was just like, why would I want these magazines? Oh my God. A perfect example of this happened today. And sometimes I forget that I was writing this concurrent with the all the stuff that's in light traffic. So yeah, here's another moment of just like real time realness. A perfect example of this happened today, October 10th, 2018, when he went to the store to buy dinner groceries. There's that word again. I feel like this could be a drinking. Do a line of Coke every time I say groceries. Oh my goodness. All right. I had already planned on eating last night's dinner leftovers, corn chowder probably, for lunch and had made some fresh rice. When he came back from the store, he had also purchased bologna. Oh, I remember this. This was so weird. He had also purchased bologna, tuna, and a larger single-serving bag of chips. Not the big, not like the actual like family-sized bag of chips. You know how they have like the teeny tiny like 1 ounce bags, but then there's like the king size bag that's like 2 ounces, 2 or 3 ounces, and then they have like the actual like grocery bag. Like I was going to think of it as like the convenience store bag of chips versus like the real bag of chips, right? So, and of course, then in the back of my mind, I'd be thinking, why didn't you just buy a real bag of chips? Like you were at the grocery store. It's like it'll be $1.79 for the 1 ounce bag and like $4 for the 10 ounce bag, and this motherfucker will buy 4 1 ounce bags of chips. Like it's just bad with money, right? Just anyway. When he came back from the store, he had also purchased bologna, tuna, and a larger single serving bag of chips. He announced that he bought the tuna so that I could make myself a tuna sandwich, then announced that he was going to make himself a bologna sandwich. He bought the chips for himself. What exactly am I supposed to get out of this? Am I not supposed to eat the bologna? Does he think I don't like bologna? Why would he assume I wanted tuna? Why wouldn't he assume I was eating the dinner leftovers? Like, yeah, right. Why would he assume I wanted a sandwich for lunch at all and then also decide? I mean, there's a little element of like, when a guy like takes you out to dinner and like he orders for you, which I've always viewed that as like, it kind of makes sense just because like, if you know how much you're able to spend, like it would be weird if he ordered himself like the $70 steak and then just got you an appetizer salad. Like that shit would be weird, right? But like, um, so like I get the social interaction weirdness of doing that, but at the same time, it's the way that you can ensure that you're actually going to be able to afford the meal, right? So I feel like there's kind of like a middle ground where it's like what I like Bistro Hutty, right? That it's like if he's like I'm going to have the Santa Fe chicken and so is she, like okay, fair, right? But to sit there and order like the surf and turf steak and lobster and then be like, and she'll have the Caesar salad lunch size, like. Right. Anyway, I'm just saying. Okay, right? Why wouldn't he assume I was eating the dinner leftovers? Why would he buy a single serving of chips for $1.79 when the family size bag is 2 for $6? Especially when he knows that we both like plain potato chips. Why wouldn't I want chips with my tuna sandwich? It was perfectly reasonable to assume he knew all of this and still decided to do something so stupid and random. Like, right, and so it's like at the end of the day, you have to ask, it's like, is he actually having cognitive problems? Or is he does he think he's chatting with me online and it's not me that he's talking to? Or is he just like, is he inventing it? Like, where did he get this from? Cat just wants tuna sandwiches. I kind of feel like bologna and potato chips. And then he goes to the store and comes back and just like shoves that reality in my face. And I'm sitting here like I'm gonna eat the corn chowder from last night. Like I don't even want a tuna sandwich. Like why? And then his reaction to that would just be like, "Oh, that's okay. I mean, it's not like tuna spoils." And then puts a can of tuna in the cabinet. And so it's like the fact that like I'm actually asking you a "Why the fuck are you so weird?" question, and this is something that's happened multiple times throughout my life. And so I feel like as much as people always want, examples of what I'm talking about, I feel like I've given several just right here in this video, right? That it's like the amount of times that people say things that I think anyone in their right mind would agree was weird stuff to say or do, or like, because I feel like too, even if it was weird, like there's a reasonable explanation for why they did it, but for some reason they won't converse with me about it, right? If I were to have asked him like, well, I don't know, I mean, man, I haven't had bologna in a minute, can I have a bologna sandwich, right? That he might look at me and blink like he's completely confused and then be like, I mean, I guess, but don't you want tuna? I mean, I don't even know where you're getting that I wanted tuna. Like, where is that coming from? But then realizing I can't tell her that it's because we were just chatting about this on Facebook before I went to the store. So remember what I was saying before about sometimes it seemed like these people thought that we were being watched. So like, well, we can't let the powers that be know that we chat about this stuff behind their back on Facebook. So in this moment, I can't tell you we were just chatting about it on Facebook. You just said I want tuna. So I went to the store and bought tuna because if they're listening, he can't out. But weren't we just discussing this on Facebook? right? So it all ends up triangulating for me. But like I said, it's like these people sound like they've lost their fucking marbles and they're all rolling under my pile of mattresses, right? It's like every time these people step out of bounds for, the treasure hunt, scavenger hunt mission, every time they step out of bounds, I get stepped upon. And I'm tired of getting stepped on. And the only way to make that stop is for people to stop talking to me entirely. That's cruel and unusual. Why is this happening to me? Right? And so I think the right thing to have done was not facilitate me doing the mission. The right thing to do was to put a stop to this bullshit. It just shouldn't be happening. But I think by the time anybody figured out that I don't even know what's going on, it was too far down the rabbit hole. You know, there's nothing, there's at that point, there's nothing you can do about it. Right? Oh, it's too late now. She's already over there, right? It's like, what's wrong, Lassie? It's like she's already down the well. Well, like I told you, we should have plugged that up years ago. And it's like, well, you're down the well now. The only thing we can do is help you climb out, you know? Well, don't be surprised when a videotape manifests and people on the phone talk about 7 days. Oh my God. It's a hydraulic low ride. Like that's like a 57 Chevy white. The smell. The smell of burning excess gasoline. Your gasoline. All right, anyway. So, oh man. All right. If I had asked him why he took it upon himself to decide that I wanted a tuna sandwich, he would appeal to the fact that having a can of tuna in the house isn't a negative outcome. See, didn't I just say that he would just make an excuse for why it's okay that we have tuna on hand now instead of answering the question I actually asked? So, it's no big deal, he would say. But it was a big deal because he was constantly acting like we were telepathically connected. Instead of texting me to ask if I wanted anything for a sandwich, he made the executive decision to grab a can of tuna, something that he likes, not me. I mean, I like tuna, don't get me wrong, but it's just like, it's not like my favorite thing. But anyways, like something that he likes, not me. If he'd ever paid attention, he would know that I prefer turkey or hell, even bologna. But because of the NPD, he was not capable of interpreting my question as accusing him of being weird. It had to be about the tuna. It couldn't possibly be him that I had a problem with. We're going back to the very beginning, right? I don't give a fuck what Felicia says. Well, what do you have a problem with Felicia? I don't have a problem with Felicia. I have a problem with you thinking that appealing to what Felicia thinks is some kind of evidence. Right? It's like, I don't give a fuck about having tuna. I give a fuck about why you think I'd want a tuna sandwich. It's weird, right? Why are you just going to the store and like grabbing things for me when you could have just asked? Like, what the hell are you doing? Anyway, there are other examples of this sort of behavior, and when I would ask him why he did something, he had no response. Or it was obvious that his explanation was made up on the spot. Or, worst case scenario, he was cocksure of the righteousness of his behavior that defied explanation, despite the fact that it was obviously extremely ill reasoned, either for being objectively naive or relatively ignorant. In other words, it either makes him dumb as a box of rocks or oblivious to my evident needs or wants. Usually it was some combination of both. Imagine being as incompatible as conceivably possible, but they act unreasonably as though they know you better than you know yourself. This is where things start to blend into the discussion of condescension because his behavior warranted a high degree of suspicion that he thought I was really dumb. So this is actually then hitting on a key Twilight Zone point that I've been alluding to, right? Imagine being as incompatible as conceivably possible, but they act unreasonably as though they know you better than you know yourself because they have seen the itinerary and the map and know that I'm running the race, right? That they're not putting it together that I've never seen the map and the itinerary or like the list of I don't know what's going on. I'm just being dicked around to run the race, right? That's it. They're not putting it together that that I'm completely in the dark. I don't have a map, but they just keep treating me like they know, right? They're cocksure I have the map and don't understand why they can't just tell me where to go next. So I was thinking about this the other day. It was kind of like if you ask somebody, like, how do I get to San Jose? And they were like, oh, San Jose is in California. Okay, but like, how do I get to San Jose, California? Well, you need to take the highway. Okay, but like, which highway? And it's like the highway that goes to San Jose, right? Everything is like, who's on first? And it doesn't make any, people don't live their lives this way. This shit just doesn't happen. It's like when I was on the phone with my dad way back like 10 years ago in 2015. Memorable phone conversation. I was standing next to the cemetery at the Kauai Church on between King and Queen Streets on Punch Bowl in fucking Honolulu. And I stop and I sit and I tell him, I'm like, Dad, I'm like, my life doesn't make any sense. People are constantly, like, they don't answer questions I ask, like, or whatever. And they're always saying weird shit or believing weird shit. But like, things that I do that work out and are successful for other people blow up in my face or like cause me problems that I never could have possibly anticipated. Right? It ends up having negative consequences for me that I don't have any way of like planning for. Right? Or just things it's like I keep running into people who seem to be completely incompetent at their jobs. Right. I mean, it's like I think about things like what just happened with me and my landlord. Right. And so then it's like these people act like they just woke up one day and didn't like money anymore and then dicked me around for 6 fucking months before then finally like throwing up their hands and pulling the trigger to like they thought that I should just pack up and leave. I mean, like I've literally rented an apartment for 3 years from a landlord that all of a sudden it's not really of a sudden, but like when I tell the story, it'll be there's interesting shit there, right? But like the downward spiral of the plot, but like basically it's like these people just seem incredibly incompetent and wild and weird and like I don't understand why or how they're getting away with being this way. Right? Remember what I was saying at the beginning of how like I don't understand how like if this place is as bad as I've experienced it as, I don't understand why people like it so much and some people just like clamor and trip over themselves to move here. You know, like if you were to just watch Hawaii Five O, you would think that Honolulu is the most dangerous place on the planet. Like what? Right? Something is giving people the wrong impression of what's really going on here. But sometimes I think it's like it's their own minds. It's the fact that they just aren't considering the possibility that you don't have any clue. Right? They can't talk to you about this because you don't have any idea what's going on. These are perfect examples of why it's hard to differentiate between what was a result of a possible intellectual disability and what was due to the narcissism. Most people would move on before getting to know him well enough to realize that NPD was one of his issues, and to be perfectly frank, it's a little hard to tell if and or how intellectually disabled he really was. It's entirely possible that the NPD resulted in an absolute lack of being aware of what motivated him to do this stupid shit. But doesn't that just make him naturally predisposed to doing stupid shit? So we're back to a possible ID. But it can't just be ID because his behaviors fit the rest of the NPD criteria entirely too well. There's no way to know the nature of the interplay of these two conditions without knowing his whole life story. But fuck if he'd tell you. It's the truth, that is. Right? So basically, too, like this just blows because I thought about this before. I'm like, maybe it's all of these people were literally just acting this way because of their participation in the game, right, in the Twilight Zone casino. And I have had such a negative experience that I have diagnosed them with a mental disorder and written a book and taken copy. I have written hundreds of pages explicating my theory that these people have a personality disorder that's so severe that they actually end up embarrassing themselves doing stupid shit. Because, and I even remember when I was writing this, I'm like, I'm either writing like the seminal work on narcissistic personality disorder, or all of this is just No, these people were just participating in the Twilight Zone casino, and you just don't even know what that is, but they think you run it, right? They think you made it, right? And it's I don't even know what they're talking about. Fucking bonkers. All right, so then next up will be chapter seven. See, there is a chapter seven. I was looking at my table of contents before I started recording this, and I was like, why did I just like start doing things differently? The formatting got so screwed up on this when I moved it in when I because I had to just copy and paste it into pages from a PDF, and it totally screwed up the formatting, and now everything is kapikai, and I can't like. Uh, I'll eventually maybe work on getting it all straightened out and republish. At this point, I'm like thinking about not even republishing it. Like I don't give a goddamn fuck anymore. But my God, this has taken like 30% of my battery, and I think I've been recording now for like an hour and 25 minutes. Like this video is going to be like the length of a movie, but whatever. It is what it is. Um, but yeah, so, and I misspoke in the earlier video too, where I said that in section four was the behavioral stuff, which it is behavioral stuff, but like, but basically that was kind of a misstep there too. But it is what it is. It's just, we're just cruising through this. I don't even think I take this that seriously anymore. It's just that, like I said, this has turned into being more therapeutic than editorial. And when I'm done doing this, I'll still post it just because. But I don't know whether or not I ever republish this because now that I'm thinking about it, maybe calling it daffodilic personality disorder makes a lot of sense because it's not NPD that's their problem. It's just that whatever it is that they're doing makes them seem narcissistic. So in a similar way to where that it's like what they're doing is making me appear to be like stupid and whatnot. Like, great, thanks, that's so awesome. Um, but anyway, all that being said, I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.